The rain battered the small, weathered house on Maple Street, each drop a reminder of the storms that had shaped Sarah's life. She stood before her cracked bathroom mirror, smoothing her auburn hair, her fingers trembling as she applied a touch of lipstick for the first time in years. Tonight was different. Tonight, she was opening her heart to the possibility of love again, a blind date set up by her coworker, Lisa. But as the clock ticked closer to 7 p.m., a knot of fear tightened in her chest. Sarah was no stranger to disappointment. Life had taught her that hope could be a fragile thing, easily shattered. Her 8-year-old daughter, MIA, was asleep in the next room, her soft snores a quiet comfort in the otherwise silent house. Sarah glanced at the photo on the dresser, her and MIA, laughing at the county fair, a rare moment of joy in a life marked by struggle. She whispered a promise to herself: tonight, she'd be brave, for MIA, for herself. But when the doorbell rang and she opened the door, the man standing there, drenched from the rain, leaned in and whispered words that froze her blood: "My kids are in the car." Her heart stopped, not because of the words themselves, but because of the weight behind them, the unspoken story in his tired eyes, and the sudden realization that this night might unravel everything she thought she knew about second chances. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of human connection, please hit that like button, leave a comment, share this story, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support helps us share more stories that touch the heart and inspire hope. Sarah's life hadn't always been this way, threadbare and stretched thin, every day a balancing act between paying bills and keeping Mia's world steady. 5 years ago, she'd been married to Tom, a man whose charm had once lit up her world. They'd dreamed of a big family, a house filled with laughter, but those dreams crumbled when Tom walked out, leaving her with a toddler and a pile of debts. Sarah had clawed her way through, working double shifts at the diner, her hands raw from washing dishes, her heart raw as steel from betrayal. Dating wasn't even a thought back then, survival was. MIA was her anchor, her reason to keep going, but the loneliness crept in during the quiet hours, whispering doubts about whether she'd ever feel whole again. Lisa, her coworker and closest friend, had seen the weariness in Sarah's eyes and insisted she try this blind date. "His name's Daniel," Lisa had said, her voice brimming with excitement. "He's kind, Sarah, a good man. You deserve that." Sarah had resisted, her trust in men long eroded, but Lisa's persistence wore her down. Now, standing in her doorway, staring at Daniel, a man with rain-soaked hair and a nervous smile, she felt the ground shift beneath her. His words about his kids lingered in the air, heavy with implications. She didn't know what to say, her mind racing with questions. Who was this man? Why were his kids in the car? And why did his voice carry a tremor that mirrored her own fears? Daniel stood on the porch, his jacket dripping onto the faded welcome mat. He was taller than she'd expected, with broad shoulders and eyes that held a quiet intensity, like he'd seen too much but still hoped for better. Behind him, the rain fell in sheets, obscuring the car parked crookedly in her driveway. Sarah's first instinct was to close the door, to retreat to the safety of her small, predictable world. But something in Daniel's expression stopped her, a vulnerability, a plea for understanding that she recognized all too well. She stepped back, gesturing for him to come inside, her heart pounding as she tried to make sense of the moment. The living room was modest, with a sagging couch and a coffee table cluttered with Mia's crayons and half-finished drawings. Daniel hesitated at the threshold, as if unsure he belonged in her space, and Sarah noticed the way his hands fidgeted, clutching the hem of his jacket. She offered him a towel, her voice shaky as she asked, "Your kids, are they okay out there?" Daniel's face softened, but his eyes darted toward the window, toward the car where two small figures were barely visible through the rain-streaked glass. He explained, his words halting, that his sister was supposed to watch them tonight, but she'd cancelled at the last minute. He hadn't wanted to miss the date, hadn't wanted to let Sarah down before they'd even met. "I know it's not ideal," he said, his voice low, "but I didn't know what else to do." Sarah's mind spun. She'd expected a quiet dinner, maybe a chance to feel like a woman again, not a mom on duty. But as she looked at Daniel, she saw a man carrying his own burdens, his own story of struggle, and something in her softened. The rain didn't let up, and neither did the weight of the moment. Sarah invited Daniel to bring his kids inside, her voice steadier than she felt. He hesitated, then nodded, gratitude flickering in his eyes. He stepped back into the storm, returning moments later with 2 children, a boy, maybe 10, with glasses that slid down his nose, and a girl, about 6, clutching a stuffed bunny. They were soaked, their clothes clinging to their small frames, and Sarah's heart ached at the sight. She grabbed blankets from the closet, wrapping them around the kids as they stood shyly in her living room. The names were Ethan and Lily, Daniel explained, his voice thick with emotion as he watched them settle onto the couch. Sarah's mind raced with practical concerns. There was barely enough food in the fridge for her and MIA, let alone unexpected guests, but she pushed those thoughts aside. She saw the way Ethan's eyes scanned the room, wary and protective, and how Lily clung to her bunny, her small body trembling from the cold. They reminded her of MIA, of the way her daughter had learned to guard her heart after Tom left. Sarah's instinct as a mother kicked in, overriding her fear of this unplanned night. She heated up leftover macaroni and cheese, the only meal she could stretch to feed 4, and set out plates on the kitchen table. Daniel tried to apologize, but Sarah waved it off, her voice gentle but firm. They're kids. They need to be warm and fed. We'll figure it out. As the evening unfolded, Sarah learned pieces of Daniel's story, each fragment revealing a man shaped by loss and resilience. He was a widower, his wife, Emily, taken by cancer 3 years ago. Ethan and Lily had been 5 and 3 at the time, too young to understand why their mother was gone, old enough to feel the void she left behind. Daniel had been a carpenter, building furniture with a craftsman's pride, but medical bills had drained his savings, forcing him to take a job at a warehouse, working long hours to keep his kids fed and clothed. Sarah listened, her heart aching with recognition. She knew what it was like to carry a family alone, to wake up each day knowing the weight of every decision rested on your shoulders. But there was something else in Daniel's story that stirred her, a quiet strength, a refusal to let grief define him or his children. He spoke of Ethan's love for astronomy, how the boy would spend hours staring at the stars, dreaming of becoming an astronaut. He described Lily's obsession with stories, how she'd make up tales about her bunny, Mr. Flops, going on grand adventures. Sarah smiled, glancing at the kids, who were now coloring with Mia's crayons, their earlier shyness easing. MIA had woken up, curious about the strangers in her home. And Sarah watched as her daughter tentatively offered Lily a crayon, the 2 girls giggling over a shared drawing. For the first time that night, Sarah felt a flicker of warmth, a sense that maybe this unexpected chaos was leading somewhere she hadn't dared to imagine. The night stretched on, the rain a constant drumbeat against the windows. Sarah and Daniel sat at the kitchen table, the kids now sprawled on the living room floor, lost in the drawings. The conversation turned from their pasts to their hopes, and Sarah found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She told Daniel about Tom's betrayal, about the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering if she was enough for MIA. She admitted her fear of this date, of letting someone new into her carefully guarded world. Daniel listened, his eyes steady, and when he spoke, his words were careful but raw. He told her he'd been terrified to come tonight, not because he didn't want to meet her, but because he was afraid of failing his kids again. I want 'em to see me try, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I want 'em to know life goes on, even after everything. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from the recognition of a shared struggle, a shared hope. The night wasn't what she'd planned, no candlelit dinner, no chance to feel like someone other than a mom, but it was real, messy, and strangely beautiful. She looked at Ethan, Lily, and MIA, their laughter filling the small house, and realized that this moment, This unexpected collision of lives was more meaningful than any perfect date could have been. As the rain began to ease, Daniel gathered his kids, thanking Sarah with a sincerity that made her chest ache. She walked them to the door, her heart a tangle of emotions, fear, hope, and something new, something that felt like possibility. Daniel paused on the porch, turning to her with a look that held more than words could say. "I'd like to see you again," he said, his voice steady despite the nervousness in his eyes. "All of us, maybe." Sarah smiled, her fears still there but softer now, tempered by the warmth of the night. She nodded, her voice catching as she said, "I'd like that." As she watched his car disappear into the night, the rain finally stopping, Sarah felt a shift inside her. Life hadn't been kind, but maybe, just maybe, it was offering her a second chance, not just for love, but for connection, for a family bigger than she dared to dream. Weeks passed, and Sarah and Daniel saw each other again, first with the kids, then alone, each meeting building a fragile bridge between their worlds. They took the kids to the park, where Ethan taught MIA about constellations, and Lily and MIA invented new adventures for Mr. Flops. Sarah watched Daniel with his children, saw the way he carried the grief and their joy, and felt her heart open wider with each moment. It wasn't easy. There were days when Sarah's doubts roared back, when the weight of her past made her question if she could trust again. Daniel had his own struggles, moments when he wondered if he was betraying Emily's memory by letting someone new in. But together, they navigated the messiness, the fear, the hope, finding strength in their shared imperfections. Sarah's house, once so quiet, began to hum with life, crayons scattered across the table, laughter echoing through the rooms. MIA, once so guarded, began to smile more, her small hand slipping into Daniel's as naturally as it did into Sarah's. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real, and to Sarah, that was better. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of second chances and the beauty of unexpected connections, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support helps us keep telling stories that inspire and uplift. Before you go, please leave a comment below, share your thoughts, your own stories of second chances, or just let us know how this story made you feel. Your words mean the world to us.